Welcome to Gone in 60 Seconds Motorsport. Yes, this is the Motorsport channel where every week we gather together, we get some talking points on the board and we have a little chat. You tell me what you think. And of course, we look at what racing is happening this weekend and where you can watch it. So happy Saturday morning, grab your coffee and let's get into it. Right then, so first thing you can see is the Gone in 60 Seconds main channel. This is where all the car reviews happen and car news. Quite a lot has happened on here over the last week or so. We've got the new Chang'an Deepal SO5 and SO7. We've had the long-term review of the Skywell. We've also had a Geely on the channel. We've got the other Geely. We've got the EX5, the electric one coming. We've got a Honda HR-V that's currently on the drive on a test. We've also got the Tesla Model Y Standard, the basic model, back for a little bit longer, so we're going to talk about what that's like to live with as well. So loads and loads of new car stuff on the channel. The Cooper Terramar will be on there on Tuesday night as well, so plenty to look out for on that channel, so please make sure you're subscribed. And then the Gone in 60 Seconds Motorsport, as you can see, we've slightly rebranded it just to make it simpler, fit in with the brand, so it's not PGF1 and Motorsport, it's just Motorsport. And here we talk about all things F1, Motorsport, etc, etc. And of course, every week we're going to do this with the news. So let's get into this week's talking points. Now, first of all, McLaren have had their planning permission approved for a test rig, which is going to be really, really helpful to them. Now, I know this might sound boring to some people, but actually, in the grand scheme of things, this is where it is going because they need to be able to put the whole car on a rig, and currently they have to send the car to a different country to have it on a rig somewhere else. So this is a really, really big thing. Now we've seen Aston Martin have pumped loads of money, and I know it's not got them anywhere yet, loads of money into a new factory and facility at Silverstone. And other teams need to catch up. They all need to be adding these kind of rigs into their portfolio, really, because track testing is so limited. Anything they can do to impact and put those stresses and strains onto a car before it goes to a track is going to help them build more reliable cars. So that is what they've got approved, and I think it's quite good news, and it's good to know. Now, Honda have basically received a $19 million bailout. Basically, this is how the rules work. So it's almost like a balanced performance where, because of the new engine rules, you've got, if you are a certain percent down in your engine performance, you get a chunk of extra money to be able to spend on your engine and to be able to bring more upgrades, just to enable you to catch up on the engine. Now, the benchmark is obviously Mercedes, and they're saying if you're so many percent behind, then you get an extra to try and help you bring you up. And they've added a further tier to this, because it was in different tiers, so like 2%, 5%, whatever. They've added a 10% tier, because the biggest was 8%. They didn't think anyone would be worse than 8%. They've added a 10% tier, which gives Aston Martin even more of a bailout and even more money and more of a chance to put upgrades on the track. Whilst this is great for Aston Martin, I'm not sure how fair this is, because you don't get this in aerodynamics, do you? Do you think this is fair? Do you think this should be allowed? Because in F1, it's all about who builds the best. If you build the best chassis, if you build the best aero, then no one else gets a chance to catch up. No one else gets, oh, your car is a bit slow. It's not your engine. You've got the same engine. You can have a bit more money. Look at Williams, right? Williams built a car that was overweight, and that has slowed them down. But they've got the same engine and same power unit and all the ancillaries as McLaren and Mercedes have. So it's not the power unit that's holding them back, but there are so many percent down. Should they not be getting a percentage, a few $1 million to be able to spend extra on the cost cap so that they can put forward more aerodynamic tweaks or put forward more weight saving materials? It doesn't happen in any other section of the performance finding parts of the car, does it? It doesn't happen in aero, it doesn't happen in weight, it doesn't happen in fuel. So why is it happening in power units? And I'm assuming this must have all been agreed so that if someone embarrasses themselves when the new rules come out, you know, with new manufacturers, you've got Ford, you've got Audi, you've got Honda coming back when they said they would leave. You've also got General Motors with Cadillac saying they're going to come in and build an engine. I suppose if you don't have this, then they may not have agreed to come in, just in case they start really badly. But I don't think it is particularly fair. So I'd love to know your point of view. Do you think it's fair? Because I genuinely don't think it's fair, right? It's just not equitable, is it? But there you go. There's a full article on the race.co.uk, which goes on about how exactly that is worked out. I'll leave you to go and look at them for the details, because it'll be really boring if I start talking about how the money's worked out. Now, on the racefans.net website, there's a couple of things here that I wanted to point out. So Formula One had its group earnings call, which is because they're floated on the stock market, they have to talk about why they're in the position they're in, whether they're doing good, whether they're doing bad, where their money is. And they have talked here about having a 22 race calendar. However, they are still hoping to get one of the postponed races on the calendar later. Probably much easier to do Bahrain than Saudi, because Bahrain's a permanent circuit, Saudi's not. So they're still hoping to get one of those resurrected on the calendar. Now, of course, it could go completely the other way, because the conflict in the Middle East hasn't abated really. You know, there's still a lot going on there. So we could still see the cancellation of Abu Dhabi. We could still see the cancellation of Qatar. So they are still hoping that they can add one of the races in, but obviously geopolitical influences will decide whether that is even possible. Then there's a whole thing on AI here and routers, which is a really, really interesting piece. And I'd urge you to go and look at it. I'm not going to go through it now because it's quite complex, but it's talking about how AI is becoming so important in motorsport and in Formula One in particular, especially with the new regulations. And that could be quite controversial, but that's quite an interesting read. So if you've got some time and you've got your coffee, go and grab yourself a read of that. Now, there's an interesting opinion piece also on the racefans.net website, and I'd encourage you to go on there and respond to them, because they've brought this up. And I just thought it was interesting to bring up. And you know, I always cite my sources. I always tell you where to go and look at these things and read and respond, because I think it's really important that this kind of journalism is something we talk about. And they want to know, should Formula One drivers be penalised for failing to respect the sport? So if you're there slagging the sport off, saying, oh, well, this is crap, I hate this is terrible, this is Mickey Mouse, this is Mario Kart, should you be penalised for that? And there is a line in the rules, isn't there, bringing the sport into disrepute, so you could easily do it. But does it tarnish the image, or does having outspoken drivers and team members help the sport? Because it creates headlines, and Bernie used to say that no headline is a bad headline, or no press is bad press, or something along those lines. But what do you think? Tell me, tell in the comments below, and go on to racefans.net and say there, because I think that's an interesting one. Personally, I think there is a line. I think you're allowed to be critical. I don't think it's wrong to criticise. However, I think if it goes too far and you're criticising people, or you know, you're specifically targeting, then I think it's wrong. I think it's fine to be constructive, to say, I mean, it's okay as a driver to go, I'm not really enjoying this, but I'm hoping we can fix it. But to say this is terrible, I hate it, is probably unfair. To say that idiot that changed the rules, you know, that's probably when it goes too far. So I think the PR for the teams should be managing and massaging that, because I think, you know, all the teams want good press, don't they? And I think it's fine to say, genuinely fine to say, oh, you know, it's not as exciting as it used to be. However, I think it will get better the more we develop and more we learn about these engines and power units and stuff. So yeah, interested to hear your thoughts on that. Then we're looking at a new track, and that's the, I assume, AI generated image of a track for Denmark. £439 million apparently is going to be spent on a track in Denmark. I don't know if that's a target market or not, but I mean, it looks like a great track, doesn't it? I don't know how real that is. It's in Danish, so I can't read it. But it's saying it is a want rather than it's actually happening. But there's a line underneath here, there's a story underneath here in Korea about Korea being ready for an F1 comeback. And that brings us on to Zach Brown. Now, Zach Brown has given a long interview and he's talked about TV viewing figures and tracks and stuff. And he's saying that instead of pushing for more races in the US or concentrating on the US, what F1 should be doing is prioritising a race in Africa and bringing back Korea, because then you've got this global sport, haven't you? And you're ticking it off a lot of the big name places in the world, you know. You can't say really you're a global championship if you don't go anywhere near Africa. So I think he's right, absolutely right. We need a South African race. Interesting to hear your thoughts on this. But also he's saying that the concentration in F1 should be on, that the work in America should be on trying to build an audience for the TV, and working on that and just trying to increase that rather than just throwing more races at it. And I get that completely. And the race calendar is already congested. So, you know, if we do add a South African race, where's going to lose out? It's probably going to be another European venue, isn't it? You know, we've just had Portimao in Portugal confirmed, and we've had Turkey confirmed. And I think there should be a little bit more fluid movement. It would be great to see an African race on the calendar. I completely agree with that. But then Zach Brown goes further and he talks about multi-team ownership. And this is something I brought up last week. And this is something I'm really, really keen to have your thoughts on. Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's fair that Red Bull, and this is really aimed at Red Bull, isn't it? Do you think it's fair that Red Bull own two teams because they can switch their drivers around, they can move one team to benefit the other? And this is a really, really big talking point at the minute. And Zach Brown stepped this up because I think he can see the threat of VCARB and how they can help Red Bull get better and learn quicker. And I think he's right. And I said this last week. I don't think there should be multi-team ownership in F1. You know, in football, you're not allowed to take part in the same competition. And I think the same should be true in F1. That's my point of view, and I'd love to know yours. Right, then we're going to go on to the M Sport Extra calendar, because there is racing this weekend, and there's some cracking racing this weekend as well. NLS, Nürburgring, 24 hours of Nürburgring. Absolutely brilliant. Max Verstappen's there. This is going to be a great race. It's always a great race, and I love the 24-hour racing. And this is on YouTube, so anyone can watch it. It's great. Easy done, that one. Then you've got the Formula E. Formula E, I love Formula E, and in Monaco as well, it's going to be spectacular. It's always spectacular at Monaco. Don't take the F1 preconceptions of Monaco and think it's going to be boring, right? Those cars can overtake in Monaco, and they are brilliant, and they look fast, and they feel great. It is a really, really good race. And there's one today, Saturday, and one tomorrow, Sunday. And they're both at 2:05, I believe, on ITV4 or ITVX. Okay, so you can watch both of those on the ITV player, ITVX. Then you've got MotoGP, Moto2, Moto3, all of which are on TNT Sports. And, of course, the World Superbikes are on there as well. So, that is your roundup for the week. I'm really keen to know your thoughts and opinions on anything we discussed today. It's not the biggest news week, but next week F1 is back, so there'll be way more to talk about as we return to Canada. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.